Ed from Pinball Mayhem here to show you a little bit about Neo Geo. So first off, what is Neo Geo? It's a generally referred to as a cartridge-based system. It's an arcade, but also is in the home market, where you could it's called AES, the entertainment system for home. Use the exact same, or pretty much the same hardware, the same software, so you can play the same game in the arcade with the same quality that you were playing at home, but it was also at the time a very premium system. It actually wasn't even intended for home sale. It was intended for rental, so someone would have to rent the unit but not actually be able to buy it. With such demands in Japan, they started selling them, and then in the US it was kind of thought as a premium system for the time. It's about I say early 90s. I think it's like 92, I don't even know the dates specifically. This is my Neo Geo. It's not an official Neo Geo cabinet. It is a what they call Dynamo HS1, and if you notice, the color here is pink, not red. This is a misprint. I'm waiting for the company to reprint it and laminate it and get me the correct one. So this is supposed to be red, but for right now, it's what I have. I'm also missing some arrow stickers down here. No big deal, those are on order as well. So hopefully within the next week and a half, this is all fixed. So this is a what's called Dynamo HS1. That's a 19-inch Dynamo, kind of a generic cabinet that could have had a few other things. This originally, I believe, was POW, and then it became the Neo Geo. Now, the button layout is, actually no, POW was a different one. This one, I forget what this was, some Romstar Taito game. The button layout is kind of weird, and I don't like it. I'm going to switch it over eventually to the 4 buttons in a row and make this all lay out in a much better control panel. So that's still in the future. And so anyways, back to, so that's what we have here, a 19-inch Dynamo Neo Geo cabinet. It's pretty much been cleaned up. I put new vinyl down by the coin door. We took off the red Formica that was really bad. A lot of cleanup I did to it, and I made a new bezel because the original bezel was all ripped up. Well, I'm trying to make a new one. Along with kind of making sure everything mounted, wiring, and all sorts of little fixes. Even like the little piece of metal here that holds the marquee in. But something special I did repaint this, I made this was a 2-slot. So this is the original marquee, and you notice I got 4 up here. Neo Geo's kind of smaller, and I got 2 on originally. And this is also shorter. The top board this would key into was pretty water damaged, and it's just particle board. So I put a new piece of plywood there, put the switch back on. The switch was busted and removed as well. Put the switch back on with the bracket and everything that's needed, and I welded up this piece. It's loose right now because I'm getting ready to move this. This piece is a piece of channel, pop this out, where it extends up a little bit. Painted it the same satin black that I painted the lower piece, and put some of this kind of dense closed cell weather stripping to hold it in place. I know that's kind of bright when I have that up, it's hard to see. And so once this is screwed down, this is in there nice and tight, and eventually I have on order, look for a future video when I finally get it, I'm going to change this up to the marquee that the game that's selected is the one that's lit up. So you see the games here kind of cycling through. You'll see that happening when these cycle through. Whichever game is on the screen will be lit up, which would be pretty cool. So, you know, you're thinking, why is there 4 marquees, 4 games? That's the cool part about this. You can have a 1-slot, a 2-slot, a 4-slot, or a 6-slot unit. That this game can have the same square footage, 2 foot by 2 foot on the ground. It can have up to 6 games if you have the right hardware in there. And so the arcade operator can get more bang for the buck. More people can play it. Let's go back to this one. So this is the marquee I took out. If we look on the back, you can actually see these are the mini marquees. So here's a mini marquee for Samurai Showdown. And that would just simply slip in. Now there's a lot of tape I have to remove to clean this up. And so now on the front, it'd be backlit nice, and you'd be able to see the game, and it kind of tells you a few buttons to pick. And Neo Geo always had A red, B yellow, C green, and D blue. It's weird that these buttons are switched between left and right player. That's the other thing. It's not player 1 and player 2. It's left and right player because they're both equal. So let me show you. So this is actually a Samurai Showdown official Neo Geo cartridge. Look for the future. We're going to be doing a video on identifying bootlegs versus the official ones. This one I know to be an official cartridge for a few different reasons. But this is the game. It looks like kind of like a huge Nintendo cart. But you have 2 circuit boards in there, and the clear case is kind of cool. So they came in white, black, clear colors. White was generally thought of as the rental cartridges, which is like, why would you rent a cartridge? This is arcade. You buy stuff, right? No. Actually, with the arcade, these were pretty expensive. If I was an operator and I wanted to try out a game, I could actually rent this from Neo Geo or SNK and just put it in there for a month, and I have to return it. The rental fee wasn't cheap, but I was making tons of coins by switching the games up. That's the other cool part, is on route or even in your basement, you can switch the games up without moving the cabinet. And that's where the HS1, actually there's an HS2 dynamo, which is even nicer. You open it up and you can pull the control panel out, and you have the cartridges right there. So I mentioned 2-slot. This is the 2-slot board that originally came in here. And so you can see 1 slot 2, so it would correlate to the 1 and 2. To put this in, there's a little arrow on the board, and then line up the arrow on the cartridge on the board and seat it. Now you can kind of see how it looks like a big Nintendo. One thing I did do on the backside is I recommend this for every Neo Geo board. The 4s are even more important because of the way the batteries are. Put a coin cell on, or do some battery damage is a thing in video games as well as as pinball. Now, in order to put this in, there is a 470 ohm resistor that needs to be removed, and I like to put it on the bottom of the board so I don't have to take all these screws out, because you normally would have to take this out of the cabinet, then take all the screws off the feet, then do that. And I'd rather just put it on the bottom. I did the same for the 4-slot, which is even more complicated because the 4-slot's a 2-stack board. So that is a Neo Geo system. Another thing is this looks like a JAMA connection, and actually it almost is. The 1 slots are JAMA. The 2 slots are a little different. You actually have, instead of a ground and a positive for your speakers, you have stereo. So you have positive. You have to run an extra ground up and split those wires. And you also need an extra button for the game select. So I have start, which is start player 1 or left player. Start player 1 would be JAMA. Start player 2 is a right player. And then left player, right player. But then you have to have game select. As you can see, I can hit it and it's going to change the games. I can put this over here so I don't drop it. But I'm actually thinking about turning that into a console so I can test these games when this is maybe not available. So yeah, it's pretty cool, kind of learning all about the different Neo Geo, all the different games, being able to try them out and being able to fix this up. Now, it's still going to get more in the future, but right now I think it's at a pretty good state. It's not 100% restored, but it's also not the Formica falling off that I kind of got. But Metal Slug is one of the big games in there, and actually Puzzle Bobble or Bust a Move. That's the other thing. Depending on the market, Puzzle Bobble was what they called it in Japan. Bust a Move is what they called it in the US. This is Puzzle Bobble is actually Bust a Move Puzzle Bobble. Let me see if I'm on Metal Slug now, so I'm going to go Aero Fighters, or Bring Fight. And what's this? Here, this is the Puzzle Bobble start screen. It says Bust a Move. But I believe on the next screen it says Puzzle Bobble. So that's what people call these games is also weird. It's all over the place. So people will call them acronyms that are maybe what's on the screen is not what's on the cartridge. Sometimes the cartridges are labeled in Japanese. So it gets really confusing identifying a real cart. So if you are thinking about getting into Neo Geo and getting your system, definitely I recommend doing reading. Just go out there, read some sites how to identify a bootleg. Another one is if these numbers are scratched off, people think that means it's automatically a bootleg or somebody cut them off. Actually, because these are sold to an operator and kind of like registered, if I sold these, or if let's say I was in Japan and I had a whole bunch of them, I sold them to someone in the US, I didn't want someone searching that serial number and knowing that I sold them to them, because that serial number is tied to me, whoever originally bought it. So people, at least at the time in the 90s, were trading and selling these games. They would actually cut off or scratch off the serial number so that when they, if somebody ever asked or saw the cartridge or popped into SNK's hands, they would not know who originally sold it and how it got into the wrong country, because these are region-free games. It doesn't matter where you are. The hardware is not region-specific, and neither are these. So thank you for checking out my Neo Geo. Oh, I did forget one thing. Before I sign off, I want to point out these credit displays down here. That was an option. On the Neo Geo official cabinet, you would have it next to the left player and right player start button. You'd have a little credit display that was on the, I believe, the earlier official Neo Geos. And on the conversions, it was an option. It was, the board was tall and wide rather than long and narrow. And I got a couple of these with the harnesses when I purchased this game. I did some digging around the operator's warehouse, and I found those, and I purchased those separately. So what I did is I put them in, and I routed them into the Dynamo cabinet. Has a 1/2-inch MDF or particle board bezel support, which is kind of cool. It's a piece of wood that goes behind this bezel, and it supports the paper bezel. Now I had this printed on paper with a wide format printer, and I had it laminated, so it did have some rigidity, so it's not just going to flop all around in there over time. But I ended up routing these into the back side of the wood, so just the display poked through, and then I took a Dremel with a little router, plunge bit, and some boards as a fence, and I cut a nice square, and I fit a piece of smoked plexi that actually came off another game. If you want to see some more pictures of that, make sure to go out to the Facebook page for Pinball Mayhem. Go back and you'll be able to see some of the pictures of what I ended up starting with as the blank board and laying it out. It turned out really cool. It was just really noisy, time-consuming for putting these little plastic inserts, but because I did the smoked windows, I went with a black outline on the credit, and I just call it credit on each side, and eventually I'm going to have the left player start button is going to be here, and the right player is going to be about there, so it's in the same spot no matter what player you are. But that's, you know, future. So right now, other than the missing stickers that should be here in the next 2 weeks, and the bezel the wrong color, 2 future projects are swapping out the control panel for a completely rebuilt one, new overlay buttons, better layout, and the LED marquee. I'll definitely do videos on that, but just kind of want to show off a little bit of the Neo Geo hardware, kind of get a taste. Go out there, look at the games. There's full playthroughs of almost all the games out there on YouTube. Search Neo Geo and the game name, you'll find them. So you know, definitely kind of a new world to explore. I'm just getting into exploring it and learning about the games and playing Metal Slug, Puzzle Bobble, Aero Fighters. So there's some fun stuff out there. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe to us on Facebook, Instagram. Check out Pinball Mayhem Jeremy, Pinball_Mayhem_Jeremy on Twitch. And also we do YouTube streaming on the weekend. So thanks again, and catch you later.